Okay, so to explain this next part, I actually brought in the function and the string array from a previous video. So here we've got that string array with extra spaces and different capitalization. And here we've got the function that will take an input array and take an input function. So if we want to call this input function apply to array, um, maybe we'll say let result equal apply to array. And then we'll take in an input array. We'll pass in that string array that we got earlier. And then we'll put a comma. And now we want to take an input function. So I could pass in clean up string here. But maybe let's say I hadn't defined that yet. So what I'm going to show you is you can take this very shorthand that we just used and use it here. So rather than passing in a function with a name, we can pass in an anonymous function. So we can say messy string and then do that, and then say messy string dot trim dot to uppercase. And so what we're saying is we've defined a function here and we've given an array. So we'll take this function and we'll call it right here. And it's going to be called input function inside of this function, but outside of it, we don't really need a name because we're not going to use this again. I am going to save this and we're going to put a breakpoint on this line when we get over to our code, just so you can see it in action. Okay, so we'll inspect our page. We'll come to sources. We'll go back over and make sure I actually saved this page. And we're just going to hit go live again because it'll be easier. Okay, all right. So here we've got our function. Let's put a breakpoint on line 36. And we'll reload the page. Okay, so we're about to call this apply to array string. Or sorry, apply to array function. We hit the next. So what is in the input array? It's text, hello, world, and hi, all that have extra spaces and different capitalization. What is the input function? Well, it's an anonymous function. It takes in an input of messy string, trims it, and uppercases it. So now we'll hit the next button and we'll enter our array. What are we sending into the function? We're going to send in input array at the 0 position, which is extra spaces and the word hello. If we hit next, it comes over here to where we define the function. So what is messy string? It's hello, because we took it as an input. And then now we're going to trim it and uppercase it. And then we're going to return it to the array. Now, if we look at the array, now it says hello. So we can see that defining this function directly inside of where we called a different function, it works and it's much shorter than if we had to define the function on separate lines and then pass it in. So if you're only ever going to use the function once, maybe we're only ever going to use this cleanup string once, we can just define it directly inside of the function that uses it. So it defines the function, passes it in. So now when you hover over input function, it now has a function inside of it. And then it uses that function and stores the results. And that is why we might want to use lambda functions. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of built-in functions that need us to give them a function. So we could define it separately like we were doing before, where we define function cleanup string, write the return, and then pass in that function to those functions. Or now that we know how to write it on one line, we can write it on one line directly inside of the input.